Ahead of Tuesday's midterms, former presidents Donald Trump and Barack Obama rallied for their respective Senate candidates in Pennsylvania in a last-ditch effort to rally voters that could decide whether Democrats maintain control over the Senate or not. Obama voiced his support for Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, assuring Pennsylvanians that Fetterman's stroke did not change who he is.
He knows what it's like to get knocked down and then get back up. John's stroke did not change who he is. It didn't change what he cares about. It didn't change his values, his heart, his fight. It doesn't change who he will represent. When he gets to the United States Senate, he'll represent you, and that's what you deserve.
Meanwhile, Dr. Mehmet Oz was supported by former President Trump as he encouraged voters to look at the election as a referendum on the state of America.
I want you to contact 10 people. Do it at church. Do it before the Steelers game. Just find the time. And here's the question you're going to ask them. Are you happy with the way America's going? Hold a second. If they say yes, take their car keys away. They should not be driving in that condition. But most of them, 70%, will say no. And when they say no, tell them that I believe that we are the land of opportunity.
Joining us now to discuss is Washington, D.C. correspondent for NewsNation, Kellie Meyer, who is in the Keystone State as we speak. Hello, Kellie.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yep, thank you for joining us. So obviously this is a very closely watched, important race, neck and neck, Obama stumping for Fetterman, Trump for Oz, etc. What are you seeing and hearing on the ground?
A lot of energy here in the Keystone State, which is key, of course, to the balance of power. Obviously, you see the importance of Pennsylvania with 3 presidents, 1 current, 2 former, coming to the state over the weekend, trying to rally support, especially in the Senate race. That's really what we're looking at here in Pennsylvania, the race between television celebrity Dr. Mehmet Oz and Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. As we saw after the Next Star NewsNation debate, the polls, shifting a bit, Oz gaining some momentum following that, as some folks got to see how Fetterman performed in that debate, some criticizing how he performed as he's recovering from his stroke. So some folks saying that they may not support him due to that. Others, as you heard in the clip there from former President Obama, saying the stroke didn't affect who he is as a person and how he'll vote on the Senate floor. So it's going to be interesting to see how this impacts him in this race. It's very rare to have a running candidate who just had a stroke days before the Pennsylvania primary, now in this race, still in the race, and trying to see if he can hold the U.S. Senate seat here. They're trying to claim this seat back. It was Republican Senator Pat Toomey had this seat. He's retiring. So Republicans trying to hold on to it and Democrats trying to pick it up and then have 2 Democratic senators from Pennsylvania. Of course, they have Democratic Senator Bob Casey right now.
Kellie, thank you so much for joining us from the road. It's so great to hear your perspective. From looking at this from the outside, it seems like, you have this one candidate, Mehmet Oz, who is very unclear what he believes in. He seems like, so Trump endorsed him probably because he's a celebrity. I think there was actually a much more MAGA candidate in the race in Kathy Barnett. But, it's very unclear what he believes in, where he stands. And then you have someone like John Fetterman, a guy with a lot of heart, but who had this, this big stroke, this big setback. I guess my question is, how much are people voting based on party and how much are they voting based on candidate?
Well, that's what's really interesting here, because I did a story on this last week about the split ticket. So you have Democratic governor candidate Josh Shapiro, and then you have Republican candidate Doug Mastriano. That's for governor. So when you see governor on the top of the ballot, you go down the ballot. But for some folks, they're saying, okay, I'm not going to go for Republicans. I'm not going to go for Doug Mastriano for governor, but I will do Oz, but I'm going to do Shapiro for governor. So you see some people here, especially more moderate Republicans, splitting their ticket. So for Democrats, they might go down the ballot, go for Fetterman. So we're seeing that a little bit with moderate Republicans. I'm not sure if you're going to see moderate Democrats then go for Oz over Fetterman, just due to what happened with the stroke. But it is interesting to see how some folks are splitting the ticket here. I heard that from people I was talking with from outside of Philadelphia to outside in Luzerne County. So it's interesting to see that. But it really, as they always say, the generic saying you're going to hear today and tomorrow is the turnout. It all comes down to turnout. And then, of course, you're going to see it skewed toward the Republican candidate as the results start coming in, because that's the day of. They got to start counting the ballots. They can't start counting those ballots until the morning of Election Day. And that could take, well into 4 days, as we saw with the 2020 presidential election. But they have invested, I believe, $65 million into different counties to make sure that they have the resources they need to count these ballots, especially in places, big cities like Philadelphia. They hope to have the majority of those mail-ins counted by the morning following. So we're going to be really watching as those mail-in returns come in to see how they sway for Fetterman. So just keep an eye on those results. Know that they may be skewed for the Republican in the beginning and then shift towards the Democrat, just depending on how the turnout goes. That's what we're really looking at here.
The crime problem in Philadelphia is so bad right now on a national scale. It's one of the worst places for crime issues right now. And Republicans have been leaning into the idea that Democrats have been soft on crime, and that's why you're getting some of these policies. Are you hearing from people who are going to vote Republican, maybe in Philadelphia or elsewhere for the first time, because of how bad it's gotten, and because they are, agreeing with that kind of criticism of Democrats like Joe Biden and John Fetterman?
You may see that. As far as who we talked to when we were in Philadelphia about a week or two ago, we were on the ground with some grassroots organizations trying to get out the vote, specifically looking at Black and brown communities, because the turnout there among Black voters, especially in previous elections for Biden, for Clinton, for Obama, was big. So they're really trying to make sure they have that turnout, especially in a city like Philadelphia, to bump up the chances of Fetterman getting into this seat. Like you said, crime is a big problem in the city. So whether or not that's a factor in for some Democrats there, but as far as the ones I spoke to, they're very much going to go down the ticket, Shapiro, Fetterman, and they fully are going to support the Democratic candidate because that's where they stand in the party. So it'll be interesting to see some others if they sway a different way.
Absolutely. So, Kellie, I want to get your take on this. Former President Trump, speaking in Pennsylvania on behalf of Senate candidate Dr. Oz, had this to say about his future political aspirations. Let's take a listen.
So, everybody, I promise you, in the very next very, very, very short period of time, you're going to be so happy, okay? You're going to be so happy. And one of the reasons I don't want to do that right now, because I'd like to do it. But you know what? And I really mean this. I want to have the focus tonight be on Dr. Oz and on Doug Mastriano.
So, Kellie, we often in the media, we make fun of other pundits who are obsessing over Trump. He's not on the ticket. He's not running for office. But what are you hearing on the ground? Is he a factor in turnout? Is he a factor in who people are voting for? What are you hearing?
Well, I'll just tell you this. I'm in Pennsylvania now. I'm from Pennsylvania, and I'm from a county that was notoriously blue for so long and flipped to President Trump in 2016 and in 2020. It's Luzerne County, Wilkes-Barre, just about 20 minutes down the road from Scranton, where President Biden is from. And I've been home visiting and seeing signs, walking around neighborhoods where, there's a Doug Mastriano sign, there's a Mehmet Oz sign, and there's a Trump-Pence sign there. And they're not even on the ballot this year. There's just a couple blocks down from our home. There's a big place where they're passing out pamphlets and maybe just an election hub for all the Republican candidates, and a big Trump-Pence sign and a big Trump 2024 sign. So I think very much to people there, at least from what I'm seeing, is that it's almost as if Trump's on the ballot. And you see that because he's also endorsing these candidates. So I think for him, Tuesday is also a test of, a temperature of how or if he should run in 2024 by putting those folks he endorsed out there, seeing how they fare, taking the temperature of the support he still has and the weight he has in this race, and then deciding in the weeks following whether or not he'll run. And teasing that, I think, is interesting in a place like Pennsylvania, which really came out to support him, especially in counties like Luzerne in 16 and 20. So he has a lot of support in places like that.
Well, we got to leave it there. Kellie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me.
We'll be back with more Rising right after this.